Marketing muscle is strength training mindset because everybody understands the importance of fitness and what it takes to grow stronger as a person. And applying that as a framework to make marketing more relatable. Like you need to grow stronger revenue than you have now. And to be able to approach perceived weaknesses the way an athlete would, I think is helpful because a weakness is oftentimes just a lack of leverage or a poor application of what would be a strength in a different circumstance. And you're right, when it comes to best-selling books or products or any venture that we have, that which sells well is not exclusively because it was the best product. It's because it was perceived as the best solution. A lot of creators wind up stuck with the fundamental problem of doing content very, very well, or solopreneurs are very, very good at giving value freely, but they can amass popularity without amassing, while still underperforming in their revenue.
It is time for Build That Podcast, where we will discuss how you can use a podcast to grow your business and expand your influence. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford. Let me encourage you to sign up for the 200 words to move you forward with marketing and podcasting delivered right to your inbox each Tuesday. Sign up for it at buildthatpodcast.com/the 200. I'll also put it in the show notes. Now, let's jump into today's episode. And today I am thrilled because I have with me Mike Phillips. He is a personal growth marketer whose goal is to help solopreneurs and creators make more money, which let's just give a big shout out for that. I think it is something we absolutely need to think through and be focused on. Mike also seeks to make modern marketing make sense for the creator economy, ultimately driving revenue growth for solopreneurs and creators. I am thrilled to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Super psyched to be here and talk about all these topics together.
Me too. It's been cool connecting on LinkedIn and just having some conversations. So I want to get into marketing muscle. I want to get into the middle class of the creator economy. But before we get there, unimpossible longboards. That's something you did in the past. How did that prepare you for marketing muscle today and start anywhere you would like to start?
You picked that out of the career archive of my life here, So yes, years ago, I had a venture that I launched called Unimpossible Longboards, and that venture was to create solid hardwood longboard skateboards. Basically, blurring the line between utility and art, a fine woodworking approach to something that you would ride out on the street, on the beach, on sidewalks, whatever. And that venture was my first, I would call it, significant business that failed. And that exercise was exceptionally instructive. And in you asking me this and me thinking about it, I was able to connect some dots from there to now that I didn't even realize were there. And isn't that often the case? When you look back, it makes more sense. So the short story is that and this is hilarious when you think about it, I wanted to start the Unimpossible Longboards in a period of time where I was out of work. So I was in between jobs, and there was a public support program called the Self-Employment Assistance Program. And the idea is instead of unemployment and job search, it's a support program for entrepreneurs who want to launch a business. So the qualification was, do you have the fortitude and the character and the intelligence to do it? And are you unemployable? So they felt that I was somehow unemployable, which I was like, thanks, I think. I don't know if that's a useful assessment. Hindsight on them, I have a great day job that I do full time in addition to marketing muscle now, so they were wrong. But nonetheless, I had a 6-month window of time, which is exceptionally fast for any business. But I had 6 months to get this thing off the ground. And I did what I did best. I come out of an engineering background. I built a well-designed product. I built a production system. I built the go-to-market strategy of how am I presenting it, how am I selling it, who am I marketing it to. I did all of those things very well in a matter of months, and I went to market. What ultimately happened is I sold two. Halfway through making it, I got a severe injury in the wood shop manufacturing the wood board. I cut my hand very significantly, and I got healed up. All the digits are still here. I'm very happy and grateful. But what I learned was fascinating. More acutely in the longboarding community than perhaps any other niche is tribalism, right? So when we talk about marketing, we have a sense of where do we belong? Who are our people? And what do we have in common? So if you're marketing a business, you want to find your tribe, show them you understand the pain, and say, hey, by the way, I happen to have a way to fix that pain. That's the most fundamental thing of marketing there is. In the longboarding community, the tribalism was, are you already a member of our tribe? Or are you already one of our trusted solution providers? And they had, in 6 months, I did not have enough time to become a tribe member that was trusted and break through and become one of the trusted solution providers. I was seen as an outsider the entire time I was marketing. And so I'd never gained traction in the community. Did all of the things right, all of the marketing operations, the production. But the learning from that takes me to marketing muscle is the importance of knowing how to take an audience from passive awareness to actually caring, having trust, and then ultimately choosing to invest in you. And I see many creators today who miss on that topic still.
That is fascinating. And the learnings that you took from that also are wonderful. The idea, and I think we forget that when you do find a niche, there is this tribalism. I don't want to say uniformity, but commonality. It really is this idea of, am I trusted or am I an outsider? Is it like I'm just coming to make money, or is it I'm one of the group? And so I like how you identify that even though it was a painful learning process, you figured that out. So let's jump into marketing muscle. So it sounds like you had some learnings and you were doing some things. Now you're doing marketing muscle. What is it?
As just a crystallization of what my personal brand is. And it was inspired by the fact that my home office, where I am now, is in my home gym, and that's a byproduct of the pandemic. I used to work in an office full time. And what happened in the pandemic, as happened with many professional service industries, everybody went remote to stop the spread. And what happened is I never had a home office set up. The only space I had was a sliver of a nook in this corner of what my home gym was. So I put my computer here and I got set up. And with all the spare time in the world that we had in the pandemic, I started thinking. It's always a dangerous thing to do. And what I realized and learned in this period of self-reflection is the amount of parallels between the work I'm doing here in marketing and the work I'm doing there in the gym. That growth, the mental aspects of growth are directly the same. The things that we have to do to a certain stimulus or to build a habit are human psychology. And whether we call it buyer psychology in marketing or sports psychology over there, it's human psychology. And that's where I started writing on LinkedIn, originally just writing. And I used that hashtag just as a way of creating this identity of this duality in my space. But from there, it's really grown. And marketing muscle today is now a melting pot of a community, right? These are folks who don't necessarily have a bad value proposition in their content or a weak product or a weak service. They're quality people who are oftentimes experts in their fields. But they succumb to the common creator economy challenge that many underperform when it comes to revenue. And from my viewpoint, I see that a lot of the gaps that can be filled are knowledge gaps about marketing and tools and products and resources that make the marketing that I understood innately from working in B2B for the years that I did, making that make sense for the creator economy.
It makes sense. It's one of those things that I've learned, and I didn't like it when I first learned it, but now I have totally adopted it. The idea of the best products don't necessarily sell well. It's that idea when you look at the New York Times bestseller list, and it isn't that those are the best books written this year, this week. It's just that they sold the most. So it sounds like you really see this problem and trying to solve it with marketing muscle, right? Trying to bridge the gap between solopreneurs and creators.
Marketing muscle is strength training mindset because everybody understands the importance of fitness and what it takes to grow stronger as a person. And applying that as a framework to make marketing more relatable. Like you need to grow stronger revenue than you have now. And to be able to approach perceived weaknesses the way an athlete would, I think is helpful because a weakness is oftentimes just a lack of leverage or a poor application of what would be a strength in a different circumstance. And you're right, when it comes to best selling books or products or any venture that we have, that which sells well is not exclusively because it was the best product. It's because it was perceived as the best solution. A lot of creators wind up stuck with the fundamental problem of doing content very, very well, or solopreneurs are very, very good at giving value freely, but they can amass popularity without amassing, while still underperforming in their revenue. And that's where I think marketing muscle is focused at right now, is filling the gaps in knowledge and filling gaps, honestly, in resources as well. Simple tools that can help you do that better.
I noticed that with some of the content from LinkedIn and elsewhere, you also talk about this idea of the middle class of the creator economy. Would you elaborate on that a little bit? Describe what the idea is, because I think it's a brilliant description for what it is you're doing.
The trap that I think a lot of solopreneurs and creators get stuck in is the very same thing that I stumbled on with Unimpossible Longboards all those years ago. Accessing an audience and building the systems in place are important, but oftentimes just not building a bridge from there to revenue is where a lot of businesses fail. The number one reason why any business fails is cash flow of any business type. And the creator economy is not immune to that statistic either. And that brings me into like, what is the middle class of the creator economy, right? Tree and some other organizations out there had aggregated a few statistics. The average creator in today's creator economy, this can be a product sales, this could be pure content, ad share revenue, it doesn't matter how they're earning money, but the average creator earns $200 a month in revenue. And of course, it varies regionally where you are, where you live in the world, but in general, people who start creating content as a business or who start offering a service as a solopreneur are doing it because they want to achieve their version of financial success on their own terms. And at $200 a month, nobody is doing it. We are looking to the breakout success, if you want to call it 1% of the creator economy, the Mr. Beast on YouTube, or even the larger creators we see on LinkedIn who are generating millions of dollars in revenue. And I'm happy for them and I celebrate their success. It's not repeatable by the majority of creators. And so when I talk about the middle class, for me, it's the average, but it's not the middle. So to get the middle class, you're really looking somewhere between, I would say, $200 to $2,500 a month. I'm going to call that the hustle class. That's where you're working hard, you're cranking out content, you're doing everything yourself, you're posting into the void and getting minimal engagement, you're working as hard as you can. Maybe you're building an audience, but the revenue isn't following, either from ad share or from product sales or whatever your particular go-to-market strategy is. Middle class would begin from about probably $2,500 a month up to about $20,000 a month, and that would be somewhere between $30,000 a year to $250,000 a year. Middle class is what most developed nations would offer as far as middle class. So I'm not like reinventing economics here, but we have such a long tail on this distribution of income achievement in the creator economy. Solopreneurs and creators, there are far more that are in the low income range all the way out in that long tail of the chart. And that bell curve is skewed. Most of the revenue is made by very, very few breakout success creators. And again, they're doing all the things right. The product is good. The content is good. The value prop of what even if it's entertainment, is good. But their monetization, their go-to-market strategy, the marketing of how they're promoting and distributing that content is usually where the gap is. Because those systems work in thousands of businesses that do marketing correctly. We just don't see dozens and hundreds and thousands of creators doing it correctly.
I appreciate the distinction. And I really like how you're framing it with this idea of, building off of what we think as, economic frameworks, because these are just true throughout developed nations, and focusing on, just helping creators get to that point. As I agree, it's absolutely the goal of most solopreneur content creators to get there. And it sounds like I'm just kind of jumping down the list of questions. This idea of focusing on revenue. I know there's a process to get revenue, but revenue really has to be the goal. You talk about it a little bit. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, so I'll let you pronounce it because you know how to do it. I can spell it. Ikigaie. So tell us about this framework and how this helps with the revenue function.
Ikigai, and it is a Japanese word written in English, in the Arabic, in Western English. But Ikigai is a Japanese framework that is about finding sustainable, durable balance in your life. And this was a huge area of focus for me during the pandemic when all I had was time to think. And the concept here is that you need balance between four key areas in order to have it last, to avoid burnout, to avoid financial ruin, to avoid all of the other things that could let you fall off the horse. The four areas are: you have to be something you're good at. You have to have something that you have a passion for, that you have a love for, something that the world has a genuine need for, and something you can earn a good living through. Four overlapping circles, like a Venn diagram of four circles. In the center of that Venn diagram where all four circles meet, that is Ikigai. It is roughly transitioned as reason for being. And I think the framework is especially helpful when you think about it as a solopreneur, as a creator. And so here's an example. If you love what you do and you're good at it, vocation, it's probably you're good at doing it. But if you don't have in the world that's interested in it, you're soapboxing in an empty town square, right? You may be very good at it, but nobody cares. Also, let's say people care about it and you're good about it. So you're good at it, people care about it, and you love it, but you can't earn a good living through it. You are not independent. You become dependent on other financial support mechanisms, whether you're dividing your time between multiple ventures. There are some people who make this work in the world, but you lack an independence. So for example, like you're a college student and you're exceptionally good at creating content, for example. You have a passion for it. You have followers who like that you create content. But if you're not generating meaningful revenue, either through ad share, product sales, merchandise, you're dependent on your parents as a college student to pay your bills, right? So whether adult, child, like young, old, all different sectors of the economy, if you miss one of those four things, you lack the ability to be independent and sustainable in your venture. Let's say you make money and you're good at it, but you hate it, you're going to burn out. So like it happens, all the other circles can have it. You can have a pitfall by missing on the other sectors of the circle as well. So when I look at this from creator economy solopreneur perspective, I bake this into a couple of processes for like making a minimum viable business is one of the things that I've put together as a way of helping people think about launching a new revenue stream. Subjective interest, something you're personally, no one else can tell it to you for you, that you're personally interested in. I say interest instead of love because you love your family, you don't have to love the thing, but you have to be interested enough in it. And I would define that as, could you speak about it randomly for 20 minutes unprompted and not get bored? That's a subjective interest. You need to make sure you have an overlap between that and a objective ability. So subjective interest, objective ability. That's where somebody else, that's not a friend or a parent, would assess you as having merit in a certain area. And ideally that you have more skill than somebody with 2 years less experience than you. That's a general way to think about it. Those are the first two circles that overlap. Objective skill, subjective interest. Now you have a product idea. you have a sector of something that you could start to think about doing. Creators get stuck. They go that far. They're like, I'm good on video. I care about sports. I'm going to talk about sports on video. We're going to do this. Great. I think I support you validating that, but you do need to validate it. So the first thing I have you do after that is, are there other near industry competitors, niches that are similar but not identical, that are talking about a similar topic? That's not bad to have competition. That's proof that there's interest in the marketplace. I'm good at it. I have an interest in it. How can I make sustainable revenue from this? Is it a profitable venture? Is there a return on my energy or a return on my time that I'm putting into this that is worth the effort? And it doesn't have to be instant return, but it should be real. And that's where you start looking at, oh, great, I'm going to make, $80 per YouTube video I make. It takes me a month with my current responsibilities to make a YouTube video. I'm making $80 a month on ad share revenue. You are now the average creator making $200 or less a month. So that's where you need to bring the Ikigai framework and go through the full circle. Subjective interest, objective skill, a genuine need that's validated in the world, and a validated profitability analysis that this is something that can work for you as a business.
I think it's an amazing framework. I really do. It's great to have something that adds value. At the same time, if people don't want to pay for it or they don't have the money to pay for it, you kind of lose. So how do you position it so that you have a paying audience? I mean, that's the real question, and that's a decision. Who's going to buy your product? Who will buy your product, and at what price point do you need to sell it at? Because you have to figure out how to make money.
Many people are objectively skilled at something that is not market analysis, or they're objectively skilled at what it takes to appeal. Like, they may even have an intuition or the ability to see that there's a genuine need for something. But looking at ways to build revenue systems, to almost build they build content systems very well, but they're not very good at building revenue production systems. They're able to film a podcast, use the video for something, use the audio as a podcast, make tiny pieces of it, take a transcript and write a post from it. They can do that well, but that's not revenue. That's the very early part of the funnel of gaining attention and starting to work with building audience and gaining community buy-in. But usually the gaps where people miss are between there and the deposit that happens in the bank.
In that instance, it's almost like you have the ability to create and build this community. Much like you were talking about earlier, your tribe, you are now a part of it. And then it's taking that next step and saying, okay, how can I serve this community? What can I offer that would be beneficial to them? But, at the end of the day, I got to pay rent, So it sounds like it just depends on what niche the solopreneur is in. Is that correct? Do you have suggestions for that?
Correct at the high level. And I think, to look at it through a more like a closer lens, that we create content. We do very well at accruing attention, right? The raw attention, and that usually comes in through the feed. The algorithm presents this to people. They engage it. Similar people like them get presented the content as well. And the thing when it comes to attention is that it's fleeting. So it is the least skin in the game investment that you can give. And yet we have, as consumers of content, become very good at filtering out content we don't care about because there's so much vying for our attention. I call those like feed attention. There's like passive engagement where people will consume if presented. But then there's active attention where people put the earbuds in and listen to you, not looking at your captions in the feed. They're going to stop fiddling with what they're doing and just sit there and listen to your podcast. There's a different level of commitment. If you ask any performer who goes on stage, the best thing that happens is when the audience is truly dialed into what they're doing on stage. The applause, the engagement, the sitting on the edge of your seat, all of that is what an engaged audience is. And that is what a crafty creator and solopreneur does with their content. They involve the audience in the performance. If you don't, you're just performing on the street and people are walking by you. That's you know what I mean? You're the street performer playing an instrument. Maybe if you're lucky, they throw you some coins, right? So then when it comes to your question about like monetization and how people do it, it is unique to each niche, but I think you can go to the audience, and you should, because then you're able to really validate what you're offering before you build anything. So what I recommend is, like, let's say you have an active audience, they're engaged, they're giving you focused attention. You should start building reciprocity. So reciprocity is the exchange, is an even exchange, right? I at the schoolyard one day, you share your lunch with me at the schoolyard the next day. Reciprocity. That's equal reciprocity. But there's also deeper levels of this, where if you say I'm going to show up for a live episode and you don't, you're not building trust. You're breaking trust. Reciprocity, if you show up and become predictable that you'll do what you say, builds trust. You need to develop trust. It's a primal currency. You trade in trust before you deal in dollars. So we have to be able to trade that. I'm going to be live. You join me. We showed up. We did a live thing. Or you say, if you give me your email address, I'm going to give you access to this newsletter. And right away, you promptly do that. Or I'm going to give you an instant download. These are $0 exchanges that develop reciprocity. Those moments of trust building is where we can learn about what customers are having a problem with. When audiences are engaged and they're used to exchanging information with you, they start explaining the things that they have that are a problem. Whether it's stuff is boring, I want to be entertained more. You're an entertainment creator, there you go. Or if it's, I'm having financial strife over trying to earn, and it seems like if I could only understand the data of my content better or my brand better, I would do a better job and I would make more money. They're pointing you at a known problem, and through trust building, you've been able to help connect their dots between a symptom they're experiencing and a root cause driving that symptom. This is I'm describing it in like a one-to-one scenario, even though you're doing it at scale through content. But when they feel seen as an individual, they no longer feel like they're a commodity audience member, and they no longer see you as a service provider or a creator as a commodity vying for their attention. So both of you get to move beyond that at the same time. Then you can go into things like, you want more entertainment? Cool, let me give you whimsical merch. Now you're more entertained, and you can remember this whimsical moment from the video you liked wherever you go, even when you're not watching. Or you say, oh, you're a business owner and you're having a hard time making money, even though you have a really good product. Here's the top 10 most common things that service providers get wrong when it comes to marketing. Fix these 10 things and achieve an instant result. You get a lower risk investment that lets them start to say, hey, this was meant for me, because they trust you, they feel seen by you. Then you have a solution and they're willing to invest. And it can be, if you're a media company, a media creator, and you just want more and more and more audiences, create content that directly addresses the things that the members of your audience are saying they want to see. It doesn't have to be product, but it should be a value that is created directly for them. And I lean in on the word creator because we oftentimes just think content creation, but really you're creating the definition of value with your audience.
I appreciate that distinction and how you broke it out. I've seen how you've done some of that in your posts and in your content. It's that journey that every creator wants. Do you have a name for that process and what that looks like? I've seen you write about it, but would love to hear more.
This is the attention funnel. Oftentimes we think about like email funnels or like drip campaigns or all of the things that different software platforms out there provide for us to be able to move an audience through to purchase a product. It's the fact that there is so much of the buyer journey that occurs before you even get into that stage. Because most of us don't have an unlimited ad budget to go spend and get our audience. We have to get it organically. And so the funnel is as follows. You start with attention, consumption, then you get to trust, and then you can get to investment. People who will cost you a like, they'll give you some watch hours, they'll engage the point of only them being served your content. So it's opportunistic. That's why I call it passive. That sort of behavior is good. That's how you get in front of new eyes. That's how you get discovered by new people. Very important step. But it's not everything you need to be able to produce reliable revenue from a creator or solopreneur business. Consumption is where you get active attention. Consumption in an audience is where They're choosing to seek you out. It's the difference between somebody listening to a podcast while they're doing something else and they're kind of, if they get every other word, they're okay with, or this is a podcast that, I'm washing the dishes, but I'm more focused on the podcast than I am on the dishes. Like there's a different type of listen. They count as the same in the metrics, but psychologically they are very different value. I would value the focused listen over a passive listen. I would value someone who, rather than scrubbing through a YouTube video to watch the one thing they need and moving on, is willing to settle in and watch it because it's an experience. It's like a TV show episode. They want it. They want the whole thing. It's somebody who, instead of skimming your newsletter, says, I'm going to save this and come back when I have time because it's worth reading. To inspire that, you need to connect the dots from the pain, which is a symptom, teaching them about the root cause. They move beyond passive because they're going down a learning rabbit hole. They start saying, oh, I want to understand this. I see the dots you're connecting for me. Even in the space, this is important because you're like, oh, I like what this person produces, but this is how I made this entertaining video. Or like, this is entertaining, maybe performative dance content. And they're like, but here's how the dancing works and here's why I made it. And it doesn't mean you have to switch into education mode. It just means you have to provide, they're not going to connect the dots on their own. You have to draw that connection for your audience. People are used to consuming you deeply. They're showing up regularly. You begin building trust. And to build trust, you use reciprocity. And that's what I said earlier. Even exchange.
I think it's a brilliant description and funnel. I like it because you are, it's a journey. It does take time. And so just being consistent, you will see that reciprocity in the building of trust. So one more question, because I realize we could talk for forever, at least a few hours. Just one takeaway that you'd like to leave the audience with. It could be a challenge. It could be an encouragement. What would you like to leave them with?
It's okay to view what you're doing as a business. It does not rob the soul of your content or the value that you give for free. You can earn a living that brings you into the middle class of the creator economy.
I like that and support that. Yes, you don't have to be one or the other. It's a both and. Something you can make a living that also helps people. So if people want to know more about you, where to find you, how to connect with you, or get more of your content, where would you like them to go?
I am the most active, if you want to get in touch with me directly, are LinkedIn and YouTube. On LinkedIn, I am Mike Phillips with the flexi emoji before Mike and a saxophone after Phillips, because there are a lot of Mike Phillips on the platform on LinkedIn. But to find my content easily, #marketingmuscle. Every post I've ever created is tagged with that. No one else uses the hashtag but me. On YouTube, my handle is @marketing_muscle. I have explainer videos that go deep on topics like the attention economy that we talked about today, as well as other short form content to make things more digestible for you if you don't want to settle in for a long lecture. And then if you want to go deeper down the Marketing Muscle resource rabbit hole, marketingmuscle.online is my website. And from there, you'll be able to link to resources, products, and of course, all the social handles that I have to be able to grow stronger revenue through knowledge and resources.
Excellent. So if you're listening, we're going to put all that information for you in the show notes. Make sure to connect with Mike. That's how he and I connected, was via LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of his content. It's super valuable. And I know I have learned a ton. Make sure to check him out. And he definitely replies and responds. Mike, thanks for joining me today. This has been a blast. And I've learned a ton from just sitting down and chatting.
As a principal, I respond to every comment because you never know when you're going to form a connection like you and I were able to do. With an absolute joy to be on. Thank you so much.
Make sure to sign up for the 200 at buildthatpodcast.com/the 200 and receive 200 words every Tuesday to move you forward with marketing and podcasting, delivered right to your inbox. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, you can find me on LinkedIn at Eric Rutherford, DM me on Twitter at rfordej, or email me at eric@straightforwardmg.com. Remember, use podcasts to grow your business and expand your influence.